Hi there. As I promised in the last video, today we are taking a look at a couple of new films, preferably those ones released anytime from January to March of this year. I've chosen 4 movies for this video, but in the future I'm probably going to be doing 1 movie per video. Naturally, I'm going to give my own quick review of each movie, and it should go without saying that this video is full of spoilers, although I'll try my best not to spoil too much. And also you should know that these are just the opinions of one guy on YouTube. You might agree with me, you might disagree with me. Movies or any other art form in general is purely subjective, but that being said, I at least owe it to you to give my honest opinion, and that's exactly what I'll do. So without wasting time, let's get on with it, shall we? Raya and the Last Dragon is the latest animated feature from Disney, directed by Don Hall, and the team who previously did Big Hero 6, which in my opinion is one of the better Disney animations in recent memory. Now I'll be honest with you, I haven't been following a lot of the newer Disney releases, cause I see most of them are just reboots and remakes of old classics I would rather be watching instead. I know some people probably like those movies, which is all fine, but it's just not for me. I didn't like the Lion King, Aladdin or the Mulan reboot. So when I saw something new and original from Disney for once, I was naturally curious to check out. Raya and the Last Dragon is a film about a girl, Raya. She's on a quest to save her father who was turned into stone, along with a bunch of other people in their homeland of Kamandra, by drones, these ancient evil entities that absorbs people's life force. She is joined on a journey by Sisu, an ancient lost dragon who is believed to have defeated the drones in the past, saving their land, and a bunch of other side characters who are basically there for comic relief. What follows is your typical adventure quest movie, as Raya attempts to collect and bring together pieces of a magical orb that is the key to saving everyone, including her father, while also learning the value of trusting others in the process, and as a result unifying the people of Kamandra who are divided amongst themselves. I thought Raya was an okay movie. The animation looks stunning, the voice cast is okay, it has a cute little message about trust and unity, and the hand-to-hand combat scenes are pretty good. The world building is also set up pretty well, but it's such a shame we don't get to see more of it in the movie. Most of the creature designs looks good. I know some people had issues with the dragon creature design, but it didn't bother me that much. The issue I have with the film is mostly the characters. Most of them aren't fleshed out as much as I would have wanted them to in terms of their personalities and motivations. I think there was just too many of them that it was a challenge to focus on each. So what we ended up with instead is a kid who sells shrimp, a kung fu baby, a big brute guy with a sensitive side, who are all just comic relief to be honest, and Namari, who I wish the film spent more time fleshing out her character and conflict with Raya. Don't get me wrong, they do set up their conflict well and it's always intense every time they fight, but most of it is told through Raya's perspective. I would have loved to see more of Namari's inner struggle and conflict, which would have added a lot to her character and made the finale that more satisfying. But if we did that, we probably wouldn't have time to see a baby doing kung fu. It's clear from the film's tone that it's aiming for kids and younger audiences, especially with the type of humor it has. That didn't work for me, to be honest. And Sisu's character, who I didn't find funny at all. Now, humor is subjective, but what I'm trying to say is I didn't laugh as much as I thought I would at most of the jokes. Some scenes did make me chuckle though. But even so, I believe adults can still find it enjoyable, cause there's some really good stuff here and there. But for me, it doesn't feel like a movie I would watch multiple times, and I love animated movies. It's an okay movie you can watch with your kids or little siblings at home, but for older people who still enjoy animated movies, I would recommend you go watch Soul, which was released somewhere in the end of last year. Its themes and stories are presented in a much more creative, mature, and entertaining fashion. I give Raya 2 out of 5. It's not bad, it's actually okay, but nothing too special. You wanna know what I really think about this movie?
Sequels to old movies nobody asked for.
There you go. Well, maybe I need to expand on my thoughts further. You see, the original Coming to America, directed by John Landis, is so much fun, and it's one of my favorite comedies of all time. Now, I wasn't alive when it came out in 1988, and I only saw it for the first time a couple of years back, but I remember really liking it. I thought it was so fun, it had a lot of charm and heart to it, and it felt like a complete story that really didn't need a follow-up. Anyway, I was curious to see whether this movie would be just as good, despite not being that thrilled about it. So I watched it with an open mind and tried not to compare it too much with the original, which was so hard to do considering the film itself is constantly trying to remind you how good the first movie was. Coming to America is a continuation of Akim's story. With the death of his father and the threat of a hostile invasion from a neighboring kingdom, Nextdoria, he discovers he has a bastard son in America, which forces him to go back to America to find and bring him back to Wakanda, Zamunda, so that he can be his successor to the throne. Since he only has daughters and it is tradition that only the male heir to inherit the throne. First, let me say I'm impressed that they managed to make this over 30 years after the original. Almost every character from the original turned up, including the CGI elephant and everything. Even the twins came back. The costumes and sets look pretty good. I didn't like the music, but that's just a personal taste. And I liked how much they tried as much as possible to maintain the spirit of the original and the theme of breaking tradition. I also like the callback to Duke and Duke from Trading Places. As you know, there's a fun theory that the Coming to America movie and Trading Places are all in the same universe. At one point, the son wears what looks like a Kenyan flag, and I'm Kenyan, so I thought that was neat. But unfortunately, that's where all the praises end. I did not find the film as good as the original in terms of its story and humor. And in fact, I watched the original after this just to confirm whether I'm only lying to myself that the original is better. And surprise, surprise, this movie is nowhere near the level of the original. I think most of the problems I have with it is the plot and the new characters. You see, the original had a simple premise. A pampered African prince moves to America to find a wife as he doesn't like the idea of arranged marriage imposed to him by his parents, and desires to marry out of love rather than tradition. The only thing left to add on this simple premise is the comedy, which is subtle and effective and had me laughing and entertained the entire time. The sequel, however, is juggling too many narratives at once. You have Akim's rivalry with the neighboring kingdom, his daughter's journey to overcome the patriarchy, and his son's journey to learn how to become a prince so he can go through the same character arc as Akim in the last half of the movie. And all these things don't come together in a coherent manner, in my opinion. Also, the comedy in this is not as strong as in the original. Most of the jokes that made me laugh is when they were referencing the original. I also didn't find the new characters that memorable. Aside from Wesley Snipes' character, he was easily my favorite part of the movie. He's so funny, and Wesley looks like he's having a lot of fun with the character. Look at that walk. I guess this movie is a good way to celebrate the legacy of the original and advertise it for those who haven't seen it, which is what I see it as. But as its own movie, I didn't find it any good, and I don't see myself watching it ever again. I give it a 1 out of 5. I appreciate that they made it, but it's not as good, and I urge everyone to go watch the original instead. It's about a 3 out of 5 for me. It's really good. Go watch it. Nicolas Cage has had a pretty weird career, to say the least. He may have disappeared from being in huge Hollywood blockbusters, but I've always liked a good Nick Cage performance, despite me feeling like most of his new movies are hit or miss. Some of his recent films have been fantastic, like Mandy and The Call Out of Space. So I saw the trailer for this movie and I thought to myself, animatronic monsters, check. Nicolas Cage, check. Blood and violence, check. Okay, let's watch it. Willy's Wonderland is a horror comedy directed by Kevin Lewis that follows an unnamed drifter played by Nicolas Cage who stumbles on a small town after his vehicle breaks down and is forced to work as a janitor for one night in an abandoned family restaurant called Willy's Wonderland in exchange for his car to be fixed. We soon discover that the facility is plagued by possessed, bloodthirsty animatronic dolls which often come to life and go on a killing spree. The only problem being that this time they're up against Nicolas Cage, who is not just another helpless victim. Meanwhile, a group of teenagers led by this girl is also trying to burn down the facility as revenge for the murder of her parents by the animatronics. If you've seen the trailer for this movie, then you know exactly what type of movie to expect. It's the type of movie that isn't supposed to be taken seriously, given how self-aware it is of its goofy premise and how tongue-in-cheek everything feels. The tagline of the movie is 2020 isn't over yet, kids. You can tell the film was made on a small budget and they had to be creative with the cinematography and editing, which I thought looked good, all things considered. I also thought the animatronics looked good, and blood and gore is always a yes for me. The film kind of subverted my expectations with Nicolas Cage's character. We don't get the usual over-the-top performance from him. Instead, he's a quiet, kind of stoic character who never utters a single word in the film. We do get some classic Nick Cage scenes here and there, like the scene where he casually walks away from a tense confrontation with one of the killer animatronics because it's time for his regular scheduled break. I thought that was funny. Despite me enjoying the film, it still has its issues. Its premise is really nothing new and innovative in the horror genre. Souls of serial killers possessing dolls has been seen in films like Child Play, and it has all the usual horror movie tropes, including how most of the teenage characters are portrayed. You have the jock of the group, the dumb blonde, the stoner, and the final girl who's sure to survive in the end. I guess I enjoyed it because it felt like a throwback to those 80s teen slasher movies. But even so, characters like this do tend to become boring after a while, and the mostly uninteresting dialogue between them doesn't help. It felt like the type of movie where it's fun upon first viewing, but after a while, there's really not much that can bring you back to seeing it again. It's a fun movie you can zone out and watch on a Sunday afternoon, which is aware of its silliness and just wants to have fun with it and nothing more. It's simply Nick Cage versus killer animatronic dolls. If that premise alone is enough to excite you, then I highly recommend it. For me, I give it a 1.5 out of 5. It was a fun watch, but that's about it. Now, before we start, I just want to say I'm glad this film was released, and it's a way superior movie than the 2017 Josh Whedon version. But that's like saying water is wet at this point. In a world where big corporate entertainment companies more often than not don't listen to their fans, I'm glad that the fans got the version of this movie they wanted, and Zack Snyder got to release his version of the Justice League with full creative control. My relationship with the DCEU has always been kind of rocky to say the least. With some movies I thought were good, some were okay, some were frustrating to watch, and others were just forgettable. So naturally, I wasn't excited about this like most people, but I saw it anyway. All 4 hours of it. The overall story is pretty much the same with the 2017 version. The death of Superman causes the awakening of these mother boxes, and Steppenwolf, sensing their presence on Earth, comes to collect them and fuse them to form the Unity that could have disastrous implication on planet Earth. So the Justice League has to come together and stop him from doing so. It's just the same concept, only this time a lot of the light-hearted and at points cringy dialogue from the Whedon cut has been removed. Henry Cavill doesn't have a CGI mouth anymore. They flesh out the characters a bit more, especially Cyborg, who carries the emotional core of the story, and the Flash, who actually feels important this time around, especially in the final battle. I like the new opening scene and final battle. The new Steppenwolf design and the black Superman suit looks badass, to be honest. I liked all the changes they made, and the fact that it's in square aspect ratio didn't bother me at all. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we already sat through 4 hours of it. I was generally prepared not to like this movie because I have mixed feelings on Man of Steel, and I didn't like Batman vs Superman that much. So I was genuinely surprised by how much I enjoyed it for the most part. It wasn't as frustrating to watch for me as the other two movies, despite it being 4 hours long. In fact, I would say this is the best of the bunch for me, but I still had a lot of issues with it. Now, it's hard to talk negatively about this movie online because fans would simply call you a hater and dismiss your criticism. But I also can't just sit here and tell you it's a masterpiece, because I'd be lying. Like, it's not clear what exactly Steppenwolf did that he now has to redeem himself through Darkseid, which is weird for a 4-hour movie that was supposed to flesh out its characters more. We also get a lot of many drawn out scenes with slow motion and musical numbers that don't work, that probably should have been cut out to save on time. It's still a Zack Snyder movie, and I know he's more of a visual director, but it can be too much at times, especially for a movie of this length. Some scenes are just there because they look cool and don't contribute to the overall story, like the Martian Manhunter scenes and the post-apocalyptic scene at the end, which are all just fan service in my opinion. But I guess you can call this entire movie just that, which isn't bad because this movie was meant for its fans. And sadly, most of the dialogue without Whedon's humor comes across as too wooden and exposition heavy, which can be boring at times. But there are some pretty good scenes of levity here and there that felt natural, and I loved it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you are already on board with Zack Snyder's style and vision from his previous DCEU movies, you are going to absolutely love this. But if you weren't thrilled about his other stuff, this is not going to change your mind in 4 hours. I thought it was entertaining for the most part, but I don't think it's as good as some fans would have you believe. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not so huge into superhero movies these days, but I thought it was just okay. But don't take my word for it. I'm someone who thinks Watchmen is still his best comic book movie despite reflect the various issues that film had. I give the Snyder Cut a 2.5 out of 5. The other one is like a 1 out of 5. I don't think people still care about it at this point. Anyway, that was the video. Let me know what you think of these movies below. I'm always interested to hear other people's diverse opinions about movies. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you're new here, and hit that notification button for reasons you already know. Thanks for watching.